This is Lieutenant Scott Jackson from the Township of Kalamazoo PD, where I have been privileged to serve as chaplain for nearly 10 years now. So, Lieutenant Jackson, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you sending out the invite. I'm more than willing to help out in this great endeavor.
Well, one of the questions we have is, could you, from your perspective, share as a commanding officer what it's like to be a police officer in today's culture?
Yeah, I can lend some insight to that. I think, 23 years into the job, I've been fortunate enough to be able to be given an opportunity to move through the ranks at this agency and see a lot of different perspectives. It's been about 6 years since I've been working the street, but doesn't mean I'm not, attuned to what's going on. And, without trying to sound too jaded and not having a healthy approach, I think the best way to describe that is from a perspective of somebody who would go to their job on a daily basis and have somebody at that location looking over your shoulder all the time to make sure you're being and doing what you're supposed to be doing, held accountable, which is exactly what we're accustomed to in this job and we should be held accountable for. But then to have the ability to have somebody constantly tell you it's not right or it's not good enough, that stuff, that pressure keeps adding up. So I think the easiest way to do it is to have a perspective of, for people to understand is that you're constantly being looked at and monitored always. And sometimes we're put in tough situations where there's no good answer and there's no good outcome. And unfortunately, we have to be the face of some semblance of reason and order, and we just have to say, no, things can't be done that way, or yes, we can do this way. So, I hate to say win or lose. There's a lot of win and lose in life, and I don't like to look at it that way, but unfortunately, a lot of the external world looks at, win-losses. And so it's just really tough right now. There's a lot of pressure on officers to, be transparent and be open, as well as not give out too much information and not divulge too much information, because the minute you step over that line, then you've made a mistake as well. So it's this fine edge of service to community without making a mistake. And so I guess the best way to put it is just you're living on a razor's edge constantly. The law enforcement agency is growing leaps and bounds and has learned over the years that, the health of their individuals is paramount. And so whether you call it mental health, whether you call it, peer, support, whatever you want to call it, in our academies in the days, we were taught, like, as law enforcement officers, you're going to wear a backpack, and you don't have the ability to transition from, a difficult situation to a non-difficult situation. You don't get the time between those two calls to be able to decompress and to unpack what you've had to deal with and what you've seen. So they say, you take it that last call and you just put it in your backpack and you deal with it later. Problem is that law enforcement officers got really good at carrying a pretty heavy burden and never learned really well to unpack that backpack. And so as agency professionals, as heads of agencies, as community mental health, as all these things in the world unfold and you see the stress that law enforcement's under and the pressure that they're dealing with, we're recognizing that our men and women in uniform are not unpacking properly. So we use our chaplains and our peer support teams to come together during critical incidents to help them do that. When it's safe and appropriate to do so, we unpack that backpack before our officers get home or shortly after the incident, so that they can manage that well, because the goal here is to have a happy, healthy employee that wants to be here in law enforcement for 25, 30 years, that's going to build relationships in their community. And the chaplain program and the CISM program and the things that the chaplains do, like Mike does, is paramount, because without them, we can't function well. We don't function well. So after a critical incident, we will call him at all hours of the day. If he's available, we ask him to come in, and he's come in at 4 o'clock in the morning before, and we sit the group down that was involved in that critical incident, and we say, look, whether it's bothering you or not, we're going to give you an outlet and a resource right here. We're going to introduce you. We're going to allow you to have time to unpack that pack before you go home, which is, in our mind, the healthiest. And then we step out and we let our officers be vulnerable to somebody else that's not in command, so that they don't put pressure on that officer who's going to feel compelled not to say how they really feel in front of command.
Well, I'm grateful for you taking the time, because one of our challenges is we are a nonprofit and we're trying to take deliberate steps so that we can either recruit new chaplains, bring chaplains on, continue our education and train. But I believe that every first responder unit all across America should have a chaplain. And I know that in our culture that seems somewhat difficult, but I'm so grateful for the TKPD, you and Chief Ergang and Lieutenant Smith and the entire team that's invited me and allowed me to be able to walk alongside with all of you men and women.
Well, we appreciate the work that you do, and if I can just put a plug in here, I would encourage any organization who's considering it to reach out to us. I would encourage any church who's considering putting people through the training to have individuals in their organization, such as yourself, that they really take the time and effort to invest in this program. They take monetary resources if necessary to invest in this program. And so to have people alongside, just simply to be there for us and to support us and mentor us and to listen to us, such as yourself and the other chaplains that are in the fire services and even the EMS services if necessary. I really would love to see this program grow, and for entities to save money and invest and to really put people in a position to be successful, because if we don't stop trying and we don't learn from all the things that go on, we're kind of doomed and hopeless, and I'm not accepting of doomed and hopelessness.